I moved to Canada when I was 2 as a refugee with my parents. We moved here from Uganda. So Canada's home. I'm Indian heritage, African-born, Persian name, but Canada is absolutely home for me.
Tonight's speaker, Farah Mohamed, was voted one of Canada's 25 most influential women in 2011. Farah began her career in communications and quickly transitioned into politics.
When I graduated from Queen's in 1993, with my Bachelor of Arts, I traveled around the world, Europe and Russia and other places, and I came back and I was supposed to have a job. And the job was gone, and so I started to volunteer. It was a 1993 election was going on, and so I started to volunteer, and I fell in love with politics. And from there, I met the Member of Parliament that I'd eventually start working for. I went into my Master's of Arts at Western, then joined her on Parliament Hill, ended up working for Anne McClellan, climbed a mountain, my life changed. Belinda Stronach called me up, and I helped her build a foundation.
Farah has always been an advocate for girls' and women's rights internationally, and to that end, she started the Girls 20 Summit.
The Girls 20 Summit brings together girls from each of the G20 countries, as well as one from the African nations. They talk about issues of economic concern, and they bring their ideas back to the G20 leaders.
I am a big believer in really looking at the economics of empowering girls and women. I fundamentally believe that if you're serious about the growth of your country, your communities, your companies, you have to use all of your resources, and 50% of your human resources are girls and women. So it just, for me, it's common sense.
When people say to me, Farah, you talk about common sense, what does that actually mean in numbers? Back it up, right? You're going to talk about economics, back it up with numbers. So if women had the same access to productive resources as men, they could increase yields on their farms by 20 to 30%. That's incredible. This could raise total agricultural output in developing countries by 2.5 to 4%, which actually then could reduce poverty and hunger by 17% worldwide.
There's a very economic reasoning and rationale, and there's a business case for private sector, government, and not-for-profit to come together and figure out what the opportunities are for girls and women in the entire world. But for us, we focus on the G20 at the moment.
That's why you empower girls and women in terms of agricultural farming, whether it's their ability to own land, whether it's their ability to have mobile devices that tell them when to plant, where to sell, how much to sell for. Those are game changers for women and girls.
If we're going to talk about investing in girls and women, we've got to be innovative about how we do this. You know, there are the basics like education, but there are many other things that we need to do.
We call it the Girls 20 Summit, yet we're more than a summit. So the 3 parts are as follows. We recruit these girls and we look for girls who are 18 to 20. We don't look at their academic record. We look at what have they done in the community. So much like I was asking you, how do you choose the girls there? Today, you look at your community involvement. We look at whether or not you've had leadership positions, and that's important. Are you actually interested in having a leadership position? That's what we look for. We ask them what their innovative ideas are. If they were stuck in an elevator with a G20 leader, what would they tell them? So we're looking for innovation. We're looking for creativity. I don't care what your marks are. And I'm not looking for you to be the brightest or the poorest or the richest. I want to know whether or not you have ideas and whether or not you're willing to put those ideas on the table.
I think one of the more important things we can do is volunteer, because you shouldn't just complain about something that you see. You should make a difference.
We've got to invest in girls and women because it's going to make a difference between a strong economy and a weak economy.
Depending on where you live, rural or urban, what your parents do for a living, what kind of school you went to, your perspective is going to be very, very different from somebody who's probably from that same country who is a very different. That's true of Canada.
You know, if you're going to have a country that its politics reflect its nation, its demographics, you have to have men and women, all types of ethnicities, all types of backgrounds. You know, in the olden days, we used to have a bunch of guys who were lawyers, but times have changed and women have important contributions to make. I think people should be elected based on merit, not based on gender. And some of the most amazing leaders of this country, I happen to work for 2 of them, have been women. And I think there's a different way of doing politics. And I think it makes it for better politics, a better country, if you have men and women sitting there making decisions for us economically, politically, socially. The variety of voices, you get a better result.
Oh, she's very inspirational. I think she's a wonderful advocate for young women. What she's overcome and what she's done in her life, because with education,
the multitasking that this woman has done and traveled all over the world, and it's amazing what you can accomplish when you put your heart and mind to it.
what she overcame in her ethnicity within Canada too, very inspiring for young women.
In Canada, we actually have it quite good, and we still have our own troubles, problems, challenges, but in other countries, women are not even considered. So every day is a challenge. That's how I approach things. I like a challenge. I like an uphill battle, as they call it. And when I feel like I'm treading water, then I move on. So I think as long as I feel like girls and women need to be economically empowered, then there's work to be done, and you take a lot of heat for that kind of work from all types of people, but you do it because you love it.
This year's Girls 20 Summit will be held in Moscow, Russia.